Good evening, everybody. This is CJ with the GOAT Sports Talk. Just wanted to give an update. We're going to start doing more team-related updates on a regular basis just to kind of get everybody up to speed. Of course, the NFL season will be kicking off, and but as of right now, there's a lot of news as far as the NBA, which is dominating much of the headlines. First, we're just going to kind of just go into the Houston Rockets. Of course, we've seen news over the weekend. Chris Paul, James Harden were over in LA playing. They both, of course, are now, a part of probably going to be the best backcourt in the league. I know they're going to basically be competing, for what would be considered the best backcourt in the league with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. I do expect them to have more of a bigger year, just due to the pace of the system and the fact that Chris Paul's in new scenery. I think is going to kind of make him feel refreshed, re-energized. The Houston fans, Rockets fans, are very amazing. They're very supportive of their players, so I think he's going to really feel, the genuine love that a lot of the city has for their team. So pretty much, man. I mean, I'm thinking right now they're still in play to try and get Carmelo Anthony. It's obvious that Carmelo Anthony is not trying to go to Cleveland. If so, there will be some kind of a package going on, possibly to bring him over to Cleveland. But I think the best fit for him is going to be the Houston Rockets, and he will even wait for a buyout if that happens. He's trying to make his way to Houston. That is the team he wants to go to. He even did something on Twitter, on Instagram, where he kind of threw a sign kind of with the Rockets, and that's who he has his eyes set on. He wants to come to Houston and play with James Harden and Chris Paul, and he will eventually make his way out of New York. I would be surprised if New York is silly enough to keep him there the whole season and let him walk for nothing in return. So I do expect him to definitely make a trade at some point or buy out his contract. So that way he will eventually become a Houston Rocket at some point in the season, unless something else happens that is unforeseen. It just looks like that's what's happening. Another part of the story, LeBron James. LeBron James, I believe, is also going to have to look at Houston as an opportunity as well, as far as, a place that he might play, and so, I mean, I think that could be something he could look into. He could sign a deal that may be a little bit less, that will basically be able to bring him to the same amount of money that he would get if he were to go to another team that had a state tax. So with Texas having no state tax, he could do something similar to like he did when he went to Miami, that would be able to allow them to somehow keep maybe two other players there, maybe him and Chris Paul. Of course, that James Harden is locked in for the foreseeable future with the Rockets, so you have to keep your eye out on that. It's something that will probably be talked about throughout the season, depending on the kind of moves that Cleveland makes. So everything's up in the air. Of course, this is all up for speculation, but it's something to keep your eye on as the season progresses. And as you enter into the next year. But I think that that's something that he will keep his eye on into how the Rockets are playing, how he feels he might fit with them. His team is always going to be looking for a way to maximize his potential to win more rings, and that would be considered one of the better choices. Now, again, we are talking about the Houston Rockets update, so this is more of a Houston Rockets-based thing, so just keep that in mind. Another thing, the story, reports came out that Beyonce is one of the potential people that may be looking to buy the team. As we know, Lex Alexander, who bought the team back in 1993, a year before the Rockets won their first title, is selling the team. Okay, and of course, it's up for grabs right now. Of course, the team is probably going to be worth definitely over $1 billion. There's no doubt about it. Probably up around 1.5 billion, as we do know. The Los Angeles Clippers were bought for $2 billion by their owner, and we know the whole story of that situation. Of course, the price was overpriced. He did that to price out the other groups that were looking to buy. That included, Oprah Winfrey and her group that was looking to try and purchase the Los Angeles Clippers. And of course, he went out and just straight up offered $2 billion, and that was it. Nobody had to change to really compete with that. I do expect the Rockets to sell for around probably $1.5 billion. That's my rough estimate of what they could be worth, in part because Lex Alexander has done a lot of stuff in China. He signed some contracts over there. On top of that, they do have a player that's coming out of China that they may have on their team. He was in the summer league, so you just never know with that. but also, Houston is the fourth largest city in the country. Also, within a few years, it will probably surpass Chicago as probably the third largest city in the country. And then it has a large, international reach as well. And then also, it's just definitely a city that's booming compared to other cities, especially considering the recession that hit, hard much of the Midwest and different parts of the West Coast and East Coast. Houston kind of was able to withstand it a little bit, even with, the oil industry kind of going down. Now, another thing that was also reported, which I saw today, was that Hakeem Olajuwon is also looking to have a ownership stake. Of course, we know it's not going to be a majority ownership stake, but he's looking to put himself together with a team of people that will be looking to purchase the team. But of course, it might just be a small minority piece in the team that he could be doing. He's probably more of a figurehead, as someone who maybe will present himself as someone who will be a good representative of Houston, of the Rockets, and of course, want to field, championship teams. So it's always good to have that. Hakeem Olajuwon, of course, is the greatest Houston Rockets player of all time. That goes without saying. Probably, many consider him actually to be top 10 all time. I mean, this is, many big time sports writers, analysts, they consider him top 10 all time, probably the second or third greatest center of all time after, Bill Russell, Walt Chamberlain, and probably him or Shaq, depending on how you have your list. So, that's a very good thing that could be happening. But I think that ownership for the Rockets is going to be very critical, because I think if you're going to attract a free agent on the level of LeBron, I believe that you're going to have an ownership team or owner that LeBron knows that he can partner up with and deal with in some form or fashion. So maybe with Beyonce looking to buy the team, not fully, but looking to basically be someone who could do that. We do know that LeBron is friends with Jay-Z and Beyonce, so that could, end up working, and hey, as of right now, if you know anything about Travis Scott, who's a big time rapper, I'm not really into a lot of these new rap artists, but he is from Houston. He's currently dating Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner has been at Rockets games, okay? So, I mean, there is a little bit of maybe celebrities or that could be coming here and that people could be seeing often, and that can help a little bit with the team, and basically what it has to offer. So at the end of the day, man, I think this is something they have to look into. Rockets, I believe, are on the up and up. They're definitely putting together a team that could compete for, at least, go into the Western Conference Finals, no doubt about it. And if they can get Carmelo and they get the right, motion going, they get the right rhythm going, they could end up probably, getting a number 1 or 2 seed in the West. You just never know what can happen. So a lot of times you just got to put yourself in the position to win in the event that something happens. We've seen teams that looked like world beaters still not make it to the finals at times. That includes, your Los Angeles Lakers, from back in the early to mid 2000s. We know that they had a couple of teams that should have went to the finals and they just didn't make it. They got beat by other teams that were probably not even favored overall to win the series, but they ended up losing. Like whether it was the San Antonio Spurs or whether it was the Dallas Mavericks. So those type of things do happen if you have a team that's clicking on all cylinders. And that's one thing Hakeem said. He said he always believed that when he was in the league that they had a chance to win a title. And you got to have that mentality of the team. You should never submit yourself to say, oh, look, the Golden State Warriors got this big four and, oh, they got everybody back and they won 73 games last year, and then the year next they came back and beat the Cavaliers in 5 games. You can't think like that. You always got to play to win. And I think that they got a team that's going to eventually be able to play to win. So I think if you're a Houston Rockets fans, this is going to be a very exciting year. I think that Chris Paul still has some game left, considering his age and how many years he's been in the league. Of course, he's, has some injuries, but man, he looks very quick and fresh. He looks very strong. If you saw, I recommend y'all go and check out, the game that they played out in LA, him and James Harden at the little, exhibition game or whatever. Before the game started, when Chris Paul was walking on the court, man, he was looking very strong. So I don't know if he's been hitting the weights more or if he's got maybe a different personal trainer or diet going on, and maybe he feels like he needs to get a little bit stronger to basically get through the season better. But he's looking pretty strong, So I like that. I think he's very serious, and I think he's gonna love Houston. I think his family's gonna like Houston. It's a very laid back. It's a big city, but it's very laid back. That's why a lot of stars come here, and they literally fly under the radar because there's not that media attention that you would get in LA or New York or even in Miami. That you would get. So it's very different vibe over here. And I think a lot of players do like that, and I think that's part of what makes Houston a good sell. So, we'll see what happens, man. This is pretty much an update for the Houston Rockets. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.